Good.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for inviting me to EduEXPO this year. I'm excited to be here because of my IDC at the LTC, Yudan Zhang, who introduced this topic to me about 2 years ago, and how it's developed is what I'd like to talk to you about today. So I have one goal, is that maybe by the end of this presentation you can apply some of the peer review pieces to your student assignments. But I'd like to know first, of course, are you doing peer review? A little bit? Okay, so I also wonder if you wonder about if students are doing their own work. Are they getting peer review help from somebody else? So in addition to doing peer review in the classroom, when a student has an assignment, I think it's good for them to ask somebody to help them in a certain kind of way. Welcome. So I have 7 points that I'd like to cover, and I'm recording myself because you don't get to present that much and record it, so better stand within the range. The first thing is it's talking about what's the assignment and what's the rubric that we give and how to handle that. Come on in. And the first peer review item is the past sample analysis. So not only analyzing the peer in your cohort's work, but students who came before you, the legacy gift that they gave. And then what's important that we talk about these days is 21st century learning and how students need to be able to use cloud-based software because they're going to be in jobs where they're working with people around the world, and they need to have these skills where they can do teamwork and have online skills. So we at BCIT have a user agreement that I was given, and I'm also working on a project with the Research Ethics Board, who has asked me to improve the form and list the policies and consequences of inappropriate conduct. So that's a good thing to add on. And the fourth, fifth, sixth, and seventh pieces are that when students come with their drafts, they copy and paste it into a Google Doc, and I have something in SlideShare for you to look at and take away if you like to try that with your students. And then getting to the steps. So I've got an interactive piece for you to do and practice a peer review right here and tell you about the conference that I'm shooting for this year with this project. So the first thing is the rubric. So I'm wondering how many of you hand out the requirements. I think a lot of you are already IDCs here before you give the assignment. Okay, so I know some teachers, they don't want to tell them how they're going to assess them, but if I were a student, I would want to know. And I always ask students, I do lots of formative evaluation. What's going on for you? What do you like? What makes it work? And they say, we need to know how we're going to be evaluated because we want to do well, of course. So they take that rubric, and then with that rubric, we analyze the students from the past. And students in the past have to give their permission. So I have created a document in conjunction from a bunch of other instructors from the communication department with which I work. And I've created a customized URL. So if you go to tinyurl.com, you can create your own word in tinyurl so that people can find your Google Docs very quickly. How many people create their own links? Okay, good. So at least half of you. And if you don't, then I've got a presentation that you can follow, and it'll teach you how to do that. So once they give me permission, but how do I get permission? At the end of the semester when I do my course evaluation, I also ask them, if you've enjoyed these samples, maybe consider sharing your work with future students who will potentially work for you. Sometime they may just come. Photo op, here's Cam standing. But nothing worse than fun in the photo. Yes?
Quick question, why do you feel it necessary to get their permission?
We are required. It's a privacy issue. They cannot share their work without their permission.
My next question is, are you using them with their names as an identifier?
Well, they have a choice.
Or have you been
So there's a four choice thing where you can give full permission with your full name if you're proud of your work and you want people in the industry to know what you've done and you have this kind of portfolio that you're glad to share. Or you can make a pseudonym. My favorite pseudonym was Dartinian Night Rider. So on all those assignments, I have Dartinian Night Rider. Or if you just like no name, so I have no name A, no name B, no name C, or no permission to use any marker. And one student made a comment, only my good stuff. Don't use my bad stuff. So if I have these samples that the students are getting used to, because most of the courses I teach, they repeat year after year, and we have outcomes, so the outcomes are the same, but the content of the assignments that I give changes. But it's okay for them to see past assignments because they can see and use the rubric and get to know it, or I call it a checklist, because rubric seems like people don't understand it. So we take a look, they get the checklist, then they do some samples with it, and then it's time to go home, make a draft, and bring it back. So when they look at these past assignments as well, they sometimes will assign a grade. So I give them the grading criteria, and then they're actually harder markers than I am. So I used to have bad examples to show, and then students would be able to go in each of the categories. Now I only have such great examples. We don't always do that step of the grading. But I have an activity that I do with small, medium, and large assignments as well. So the third step is the user agreement. So before we can move into Google Docs, we have to make sure students are aware that they're sharing their personal information and store it on a site in the USA. So I got this from Cynthia Kent, BCIT Associate Director of Privacy, Records Management, and Copyright. I had to write that down. Couldn't remember her title all by myself. So again, I've created a tiny URL for you. It's called Google User Agreement, and I've updated it just from last night with the policies that I've been asked by the Research Ethics Board to include on this document. Cynthia Kent. I don't know if she's even here because I don't know what she looks like. Okay, so are you Cynthia Kent?
No. Do you lose control of your content once you upload it to Google?
Do you lose control of your content?
Yeah.
Anything you share online is a freebie for
So
anyone
then
out
why
there.
do you need to ask permission to share it once they've uploaded it?
Okay, so there's two things going on. Permission to share a document that may be written on paper and distributed in the classroom, but not published as a book or shared where they can have an electronic copy. Then there's the issue of, for the peer review process, I want them to do peer review online and not on paper. So to go online, I'm choosing the cloud-based software of Google Docs, and Google Docs is stored in the US, so the students have to consciously agree and sign that they're okay with that. So one alternative for them is I say, create a new Google account with no discerning information about it, make up a fake name, Dartinian Knight Rider, and then you can have your Google Doc about that, and include nothing like there's a list of blood samples and telephone number, sex and sexual orientation, all kinds of, the whole list is there when they say, well, what is privacy? What is my privacy about? So there's a nice list for them to consider. But we don't usually do blood samples in my comm class, so they're okay with signing the form. And if they don't want to, then I say, well, you can just work paper-based, no problem. You always have a choice. Okay, so now they have their user agreement, they've gone home and they wrote a draft, and they come back to copy and paste into the Google. So they come with their laptops. In the Fish, Wildlife, Recreation department that I teach into, they all have laptops. So they come with their sample, and I teach them how to copy and paste it into Google so it's anonymous. So I've placed that for you into SlideShare. So this presentation's on SlideShare, and the step-by-step process of how to put it in and be anonymous with your work so that it's ready for somebody to take the number. They customize the URL like I have with those red marks on the table, on the board. And then they're ready to share that document, and it has no name attached. As long as they remember to sign out, this is something that happened. If they're still signed into Google Docs and they create a link and give somebody that link, if they're still signed in, their name comes up. So they have to sign out, and they have to go back into that account, try and edit, and then leave again because it shows the person that last edited. So if you set up the account and you edit it, your name is still attached. So you have to completely do 2 steps to get anonymous. So the first time the student says, oh, we know who was here, I said, well, just forget about that. Just forget. And then we knew the next time everybody log out. But that worked really well. So in SlideShare, every presentation I've been to in international conferences, everybody's sharing their slides in SlideShare, and also there's really nice ways to get some ideas and color coordination if you want to change up your look of your presentation. So if you use anything here under the copyright, the Creative Commons Attribution License 2.0, you're free to remix and redistribute, and I'm happy if you share and do that, just mention my name, which happens to be, my brand is Gandrich, so I learned a long time ago that brand yourself on the web so that everybody can find you on everything we produce. So everywhere I am on social media, it's Gandrich. Okay, now it's time for you. The peer review steps. But when I first started in technology and language learning. I met this man, this is a book not from BCIT, so I have to keep this attached. Mark Warschauer, in 1989 I met him. And now since I've been increasingly involved in international conferences on technology and education, I did a Google search of the stuff about learning in the cloud, and who do I bump into again 30 years later is Mark Warschauer. So his research and my research have overlapped. And I looked him up on Twitter so I could tell him, I'm so excited to see you again in my life. And we have overlapping Twitter friends as well. It's just become such a small world. Anyways, so he did a study with a bunch of people who discovered that you need to teach students how to do peer review. You can't just say, okay, take the rubric and give some people some feedback. So I contacted Jeff Verbeen from the Learning Commons, and he handed me out this Duke University handbook that they use for their peer tutor programs. And I've customized the URL if you'd like a copy, Duke U, HOC and LOC. Higher order concerns and lower order concerns. So students can look at the content of the rubric, but also address what are the big issues like transitions, logical order, cohesive paragraphs, and lower order concerns about grammar mechanics and spelling. But you don't want to just go in. So I've always asked the students, when you have something you want to get feedback on, how do you usually get feedback? Do you hand over your laptop? Do you give the paper to someone and they pick up their red pen and they all go, yes? And you're not allowed to ask and receive that kind of feedback. So if you're going to be an effective peer reviewer, you have to know how to do it and you have to know how to ask for it. So plagiarism is a huge issue, especially with 20% of internationalization happening on university campuses in BC, that we have to make sure that students are good peer reviewers and asking for proper feedback. So plagiarism isn't such an issue. And we use James's videos in our classes all the time. So if you'd like to look at the ins and outs of that, you can go to the Duke U site. Now, at the last page of the Duke U site, they recommend the compliment sandwich. Students love the compliment sandwich because you write a small paragraph, a summative comment about what you liked, what you see trends that they could improve on, and then end with the compliment. So they say, should we have a compliment sandwich? Yes, add the compliment sandwich. And then I give them the 50-50 tickets because that's fun. And we're quarter past, so we're doing well for time. So I'm going to have you pretend to do an assignment today. So on your sheet of paper, this is your assignment. So you've brought your assignment to class. And I asked you to write it anonymously. I let them do their A00 number, but you then joined the IDC that I'm assigned with. She said, why don't you do a 50-50? So the students bring their assignments and they can write the 50-50 number on their assignment. So please write your ticket number, and your assignment today is list one thing or some things for which you are grateful. That's your assignment. 1, 2, or 3 words. It's a really tough assignment. And if you were now making your Google Doc and you were saving on your tiny URL, your tiny URL address would be the same 50-50 number. So they come to class and they don't know what their number is going to be, so it's going to be completely anonymous. So rip your ticket in half, hand in your assignment, give me your assignment, your yellow paper, and put one 50-50 ticket in the hat. Thank you. Give me your assignment, one ticket, one assignment, thank you. Come on up, don't be shy, we don't have a lot of time, so please come and exercise, get the blood going to your brain. Yep, put one in the hat. Okay, so the slides get protected. So if you've brought your homework today, some students don't, so they get to work in pairs or triplets. If you brought your homework today, then come and take a ticket now, and you get to evaluate your peers' writing. So please come take a ticket and find a match. So you've given me a ticket, and now you have to take a ticket. Take a ticket and find the match. You don't know whose it is. Take a ticket. There will be a draw today for chocolate, so keep your original tickets. You find the number on the homework.
I guess we're going to tell first. 2.
Just keep it, 'cause that's the draw prize. Don't get old, right? Find the match. Oh, okay. Oh, I just did. Oh, I have my own. Somebody want to trade me? Oh, you got your own? Sometimes that happens. Sorry.
I didn't realize it had to be. I was suddenly thinking I had to pay for it.
It only matters that you get somebody else's paper and you don't know whose it is. Just take one, grab your own paper. Okay, so what you're going to do is only give 1/3 of the sandwich. You've taken a number out of the hat, you have a matching assignment, and you read this. So you can offer some feedback. You can tell them they're a good sport. You can love them or like their comment. You can take it, it really doesn't matter. So if you didn't bring your homework today, sit next to somebody who did, and you can work in triples or pairs, and 2 people can do an evaluation of the assignment. Because sure enough, someone's going to forget. So you can work alone, or in pairs, or in triplets. It's better not to say threesomes, I've learned. Yeah, we learned. So this paper represents your peer review. So offer 1/3 of a compliment sandwich because of time constraints today. And then you return the paper to the front, and then you can put your ticket back in the hat, and you can do it twice. In a 1-hour class, we can usually do 2 peer reviews. And then it's fun to see, what did somebody say about me? Or how is their writing like my writing? Or am I going to learn how to write better because I've seen some samples? Or is everybody going to copy me because I'm strong and now people are watching? So we could do this a few times. You can offer a compliment to the writer. The second one I picked up earlier. Doesn't matter really. Just keep one, so that proves that yours was yours. Oh, I see. I keep on. Like an hour, I can do it in an hour. So no, we're not going to do it twice, we're just going to do it once. Please come and get your original. Come and get your original. Give me back the ticket, and go get your compliment. Go look for a compliment. We're fishing for compliments today. Thank you. Fishing for compliments.
Oh yeah, this is it.
And then students can't remember, and then that's why it's nice. I wrote that. So you can't remember your number, you have a ticket to tell you the number, you can claim your code. Well, we can whatever time. Here, you can put the original back. So you just have your original, and then you leave one for somebody else. Add the web and that's it. But I'm going to move it out by steps so you can take on the front slide here. So please come and get your original. 333. 329. Who has 339? We still need to claim 339. You have 339. Okay, well, we're not supposed to know who had 339. So here we go. There are still 2 originals here. Who would like a compliment? Nobody wants a compliment? Somebody likes having free parking. They're grateful for family and education and where they live. Someone said I didn't consider that. Where did you find parking? So dialogue starts. So very, very fun.
The library.
Very, very fun.
Free parking at BCIT, sure, just.
So because you were so good at bringing your homework today, I have a prize to give you of chocolate. So would you please choose the lucky recipient? And I always bring baking
Does
to
this
class.
disqualify me?
No, you can take your own. We know it's 339.
No, 3, 4, 5.
Congratulations. So an applause for the winner.
Right there. Now I'm going to change my list.
So where are we going from here? I am going to Greece this summer for my second time, and this wonderful woman, Nancy, runs this conference this year on roads. It's called the International Conference on Information, Communication, Technologies, and Education, ICICTE. And last year was the first year I went to that. Normally for the last 7 years I've been going to AACE, the Association of Advanced Computing and Education. This year it's in Vancouver. So I applied to my department for funding, and I got money to go to both conferences and present and find out what do my students think about this. And this year, because I met somebody at that conference, they interviewed the students the first year, and the next year they changed their study to interview the teachers. So I did a Skype interview with Brazil, and I was interviewed about my perceptions of using, they had a 3-word, when you give feedback online and you use online tools. And she asked me what kind of tools and how do I give feedback using comment features and things. I'll be excited to hear their presentation because I'm going to Greece. And she's just the most wonderful, beautiful woman that was ever made.
Is it in Greece today?
This one is in Greece every year, but AACE goes around the world. So I've been to Portugal, I've been to Finland, and I presented all kinds of excellent things that I learned from the Learning and Teaching Center at BCIT. It's okay. So if you haven't done this before, would you consider adding peer review? Could you make time to have your students look at each other's work? Absolutely. Great. Well, thanks to the Learning and Teaching Center, I'm getting great opportunities here. And if you'd like to contact me and ask me more questions, or go and find me in the social media world, just search for Gadrich and I'll come up. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Jill, for an excellent presentation and really token of our appreciation. And we will now get set up for our next presentation. We have a 5-minute break in between.
And we have presentation idle going on, so I have to sneak out and be a moderator. So.
There, that's me, conceptual learning. That's me. You have your own.
I saw you.
I do. Okay.
I'm Mary.
I went against the grain.